were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought?
Welcome to the show today. Of course, there's Rational Thoughts. If you want some more Rational Thoughts, be sure to subscribe, click below, get show notes, get some tips, get some secret sauce from us, especially on this show today, folks, because I got a really cool guest. She is the self-proclaimed extraordinary word ninja. She's Chief Visionary Officer of RTI Publishing and host of the Author to Authority podcast. Sounds familiar. Now, the funny thing is that this guest did not write for 30 years after a teacher told her at 7 years old she was no good at writing and should stop. Quite frankly, that's not even proper English. And she came to a crossroads at some point and chose to let those painful words not stop her. She let them go. And since then, she set the world on fire. She's written 5 books with 2 more on the way. And most importantly, she started RTI Publishing and has helped over 150 entrepreneurs become authors and authorities. She understands the power of words and cannot wait to share them with you on our podcast, as well as her own podcast called authortoauthority.com/podcast. So check that one out too. So in the meantime, I'd like to introduce to you my friend and another publisher in our space, Kim Thompson Pinder. How you doing, Kim?
I'm doing awesome, Doug. Thank you so much for having me on.
Great. Now I got to start with this one thing. People think, wow, you're bringing on, sounds like she does exactly what you do. I'm like, well, yeah, probably we have a lot of similarities. Well, wait a minute. Isn't that competition? And my response is you got to remember this one. Like, let me ask you a question. How many diamond rings you have? Oh, I got 1, right? Okay. How many cars do you have? Well, 1, maybe 2. How many books do you have? Oh, I don't know, 100, 200. Are they all from the same publisher? In our business, we have no competition.
That's right. 0.
Nobody has just 1 book. And if you do, I wouldn't want you as a customer, quite frankly. So it doesn't matter. So yes, Kim does a lot of what we do, and we have a lot of similarities. So it's going to be great to chat with her today and talk to her about what her perspectives on the author to authority concept. So I'm more interested in hearing about your background for a minute. Can you tell me about that teacher, the bad grammar teacher when you were 7?
So the story actually starts when I'm 4 and my mother passes away.
Oh, sorry.
And, that just really it totally changed my life. And by the time I was 7, I was so desperate for a mother because now I was different from every other kid. And in grade 2, that teacher, she was beautiful and she was smart and she was talented and she was wonderful. And I wanted her to be my mother. And I emotionally overwhelmed the poor woman. I can remember, always wanting her attention, being the first to raise my hand, getting upset if she didn't pick me. I really thought my dad was going to marry her and she was going to become my mom. And I don't know if she was married. She was fairly young. I don't know if she had kids of her own. But I know that I emotionally overwhelmed this poor woman. And in grade 2, I could start to write stories. And, if you haven't figured this out, Doug, I've got quite the vivid imagination. So I started writing stories. And I remember the first time I handed her my story and she liked it. Well, that was all this 7-year-old grieving heart needed. And I wrote 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 and I wrote. So every day I was just handing her piles of paper and I was expecting her to read them and affirm me as a little girl. And like I said, I overwhelmed her. And one day she just looked at me and she said, Kim, you should stop writing. You're not a good writer. And, that was that turning point. And I didn't write for 30 years after that. But when I came to that crossroads, I remembered those words and I looked back at that time and I recognized my role in it and took responsibility for it. I forgave my teacher and I decided it was time for me to let my words go.
Wow. Not only is she a publisher, folks, she's also a therapist. So just keep that in mind. All those words, I forgave her, let it go, took my responsibility. Holy crap. What was a crossroads? What was the turning point for you then?
So I had been an entrepreneur since about 1993, not a successful one, but
Who is?
I was one. And I had an opportunity to get a website. Now, back in 2011, you could do your own website, but it was not easy. And so one of my mentors had a package that I could afford to get a website done. And I had wanted my own website forever. And so he was doing this website, and he emails me and he goes, okay, Kim, everything's set up. We just have to set up your blog. And I emailed him back. I said, what's a blog? I didn't know. I mean, I've been reading them, but I didn't know that's what it was called. And when he responded, I only remember about the first line of the email. It says, you have to write. And at that moment, I was in the crossroads.
That was actually perfect, Kim. The crossroads, and the music comes in like that. That was beautiful. It's like she's doing theater here, folks. It's great. Outstanding. Those epiphany moments are so galvanized in our head, aren't they? I mean, everyone remembers those turning points. And so you had to write, and what next?
So it took me 3 days to write my first blog post. And, back then I wrote everything by hand on paper and then typed it into the computer. That very quickly became tedious, but that was my process back then. And I must have, crumpled up about 50 or 60 pieces of paper. I mean, my floor was just littered with paper. And finally I had this blog post. I put it up on the website, and I had just enough courage to ask a few people to read it. Well, they really liked it. They thought it helped them. It was beneficial. So that was all this 40-something-year-old heart needed. And I began writing blog posts more and more and more. And then, I knew it was time to start writing books. And that's a long story, but let's just say that, so many times with a hair's breadth, I almost gave up. The computer also almost went out the window. I don't know how many times. And I had to learn the hard way. I didn't have money for courses. I could afford $25 for a small course. So I spent a lot of time buying small $7, $25 courses to answer one question that I needed. And I Googled a lot of things, and it was really hard. And like I said, the computer almost went out the window. I don't know how many times. The only thing that kept me from it is my husband's a tech guru, and he would have gotten really upset if I had trashed the computer. So that's probably part of the story.
Okay. All right. So you got into writing. That's a beautiful thing. And then what was your first book about?
So at that point, I was in network marketing.
Okay.
And I had a growing team, and I just wanted to write books that would help them build their business. So the first one I wrote was Network Marketing Recruiting, 50 free or low cost ways to find, recruits and customers. So that was the first one. And then I wanted to teach my team how to sell. So the second book was How to Sell $10,795 a year in Network Marketing and MLM. And then the third book was called MLM Mindset Minutes, because, it's great that you have all these skills, but if your mind and heart are in a good place, you're not going to be able to build a business. So those were my first three books. I wrote a little free book on network marketing. Then just because I thought it would be fun, I learned how to do Sudoku books. I learned how to do some planners. So, that kind of brought me up to about 2015.
So you can do a Sudoku. I thought those are like computer generated. I don't know how you do that. How do you do those numbers on this?
I had software to generate the puzzles, but then I had to format it all so I could put it in a book. And that was the hard part, was figuring out how to format this thing, because you know as well as I do that when you start adding images into books, it's not always fun. So it took me quite a while. But I did it. I figured out how to create Sudoku books.
Amazing. That's great. All right. So you're doing the books in the MLM business. And at some point, you started helping other entrepreneurs create their books. What was the transition from Sudoku and MLM to that?
So it's now 2015, and my son's getting married. And it was a very expensive year because he was getting married, and we had two vehicles that we were driving by faith. So I don't know if you've ever driven a vehicle by faith before, but the vehicles were at the point where they were no longer fixable. We had decided that we weren't going to go into debt for any more vehicles. So we were saving up to buy two vehicles. So I would get in my vehicle, pray I would make it to where I was going to go, do what I needed to do, get back in my vehicle, and pray the angels would get me back home again. So I was on a freelance site. I'm very creative. I'm crafty, very creative in music and writing, but never ask me to draw. I can't even draw a straight line with a ruler. It's really bad. So I was on a freelance site looking at a graphic designer, and I had one of those God moments. And I just really felt like I was supposed to look at writing jobs. And I could not believe what people were paying for writing jobs. And I looked at it, I'm like, yes, I'm applying for that one. And so I just started taking on writing jobs because I needed extra money. And because I was already an established author, my books had good reviews, I could prove that I could write. I got jobs right away.
Cool. That's beautiful. So the Driving on Faith, I think you probably started that first bumper sticker. God is my co-pilot then, right? That was yours? I'm just guessing. It's just a guess. I don't know. Good deal. All right. So, and then we mentioned at the beginning of the show, obviously we have similar businesses. You ghostwrite for your clients as well, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So give me some, how the first started. They came, hey, I want to write a book, or I can't write it, or how's that work for you?
So when I first started, I was on freelancing sites. So I would just apply for jobs. People would want books written, and I would apply for them, and I would do them. But within about a year, I had people asking me for editing and cover design and formatting and all that kind of stuff. And because I had done it all myself, learned how to do it, I started taking on those kind of jobs too. Mind you, the graphic design wasn't the greatest. I used a lot of templates back then. But it just grew really fast. And within a year, I knew it was my passion. I knew it was my heart. And so I decided to start a company. And in the beginning, I was just taking on whatever jobs I could get, freelancing sites, different places. I had someone who was a publisher hire me to ghostwrite. In about most way through 2016, I knew I had so much work I couldn't do it all myself. So I brought on my best friend who's an editor. She now helps me run the company. So it kind of grew organically. I had no clue what I was doing, but I just knew that I had found something that I had such a passion for, and it kind of took off from there.
That is great. I love it when a passion and purpose come together with a business. That's a beautiful thing. So when you do this for people, people need to understand the process here, because I think a lot of people, when I talk, they go, I don't want to ghostwrite. I want to write my own book. And then I read their samples and I'm like, well, people will fall asleep. So can you address the fact of how ghostwriters, and I'm guessing your people as well, have to help mirror that person's voice? You and I talked about the interview process and trying to help almost clone a person's personality into the book. Can you talk about that, how you guys do that?
Yeah. So there's all sorts of different types of ghostwriters. So there's some ghostwriters, you just tell them the topic that you want. They go research it, they write it, you slap your name on it. But those are not the kind of books that Doug and I do. I call it a signature book. Now, I work with entrepreneurs, professionals, speakers, and coaches, and we create books for them that they use as foundational marketing tools for their business. So two things are incredibly important in these books. One, the book needs to sound like them. So if a family member read the book, they would think that they wrote it. Two, it needs to be well written. If you're using this book to represent you and your business, it better be logical. It better have a lot of value, better create relationship. It better have good flow, be readable, all of those things that you want in a book, and relatable. So Doug and I do these kinds of books where we just really focus in on capturing our client's voice, and more importantly, the heart of their message. Because every client that I've worked with, and I'm pretty sure Doug has as well, has a strong message that they want to share, a strong message or a strong story. And so it's capturing that voice and writing it in a way that captivates the audience.
Absolutely too. Spot on. Absolutely. I was talking to my business coach last year, actually, when the pandemic started out. He's listening to some of my recordings on my sales calls. And he said, wow, this first guy you talked to, you were so excited about it and passionate. It sounded a great call. The second call you had, you were kind of bored, not rude, but just not interested. And he said, why is the difference there? And you can guess why. I'm like, well, the first guy had a really passionate story and a purpose in life. And the second guy, he was a former TV star, talk about himself the whole call. And I could care less. He wasn't serving the plan. He was serving his ego. And I just wasn't interested. And my coach said, why'd you talk to him? I needed the business. And he said, but he didn't hire you. I'm like, I know, because I wasn't interested in it. So again, why are you talking to him? Well, I need the business. Well, he said, if you stop talking to people that aren't in line with your values of purpose and intention of making the world a better place, if you don't talk to the other people, just talk to the ones you want, your business will grow. And I said, half my people are egocentric. It's not about, because don't talk to them anymore. How my business is going to grow when I cut my leads by half? He says, just do it. Business went up 300% last year because I stopped talking to egocentric people and started focusing on people with a story that matters, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fun for us because if I can get behind their idea, right? I've got one guy, he's a former Coast Guard commander, and I said, what's your purpose? Why are you doing this book? Doug, I'm going to end veteran homelessness. That's the way he talks. I said, like in your area in Pittsburgh? No, the whole country. I'm like, big, hairy, audacious goal. I'm like, I'm in. I'm with this guy for life. I said, I don't know how long it's going to take us. Maybe it'll take a couple generations for this. Who cares? We're on this lifelong mission now to end veteran homelessness. So it's enough about me. I'll talk more about you. Tell me about sorry about that. It's okay,
because I enjoy your stories too.
No, let me ask you a question about a person's journey during the ghostwriting journey. Because a few times, some people are consistent in their journey and some people kind of drop off during the process because mirroring and editing their voice sometimes takes a little longer than they'd like. Do you have any problems with people losing their passion midway at all?
Not their passion. They get overwhelmed.
Yeah. Right.
It's kind of like they get halfway through the book and the reality of the fact that they're writing a book hits them. And they're kind of like, we're halfway through. Like, we're going to publish this thing. Like, people are going to read this. And they usually, we kind of take a lull in the middle because they just need some time to process the fact that this is actually happening to them.
Yeah.
And with them. So that's normally the case. Now, I did have one client, and her story was just so incredible. She she was born and raised in Pakistan. She married a man. She was living under Sharia law. He was very rich and powerful. Yeah. He tried to have her and the kids killed, and she had to flee to the United States. Okay, so when we were working on this book, what she didn't realize at the time is she had a lot of emotional unresolved issues.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So the book took about 3 times as long as it should because she had to keep stopping. And I was like, you know what? That's okay.
Fine. Yeah.
That's fine. Like deal with it. The book, publishing the book's important, but not as important as your mental health. And if you emotionally can't handle this right now, then let's take a break until you can.
Right. Yeah, that's smart.
So
I think I was not talking to, I think I was on our call with Bob Berg. We're talking about, sometimes I feel like I'm as much of a therapist as a book coach, right? We're doing a lot of this.
Some days.
People they're writing
book coach.
Right? They're writing their book for cathartic reasons. I'm like, okay, well, and I got to hear their story. Okay, yeah, okay. How many times do people say, my story's so amazing, it's going to be a movie? Do you hear that a lot?
Very few. Most people, it's the exact opposite. They're like, I don't think my story's that good. Like, I was talking to a gentleman today, and I won't go into his details, but he has an amazing story. And, we were talking and he's like, Kim, I know my story's not that great, but I just feel like, God wants me to get it out there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, your story is amazing and it's going to totally, completely help people. So I tend to get the opposite end where people are like, I don't even really know if I should be telling my story. I'm like, oh.
I don't know what the ratio is. I think about 20% of mine. You've never heard something like this before. I'm like, All right, try me. Because they're all great. I don't mean to be a curmudgeon about it. Everyone's got like amazing journeys and whatnot, but they always think that they're better than. No, you're not better. You're special for sure. We're all special out there. But yeah, the movie thing I think I get about 30% of the time people think their story is so amazing it should be a movie. And I was like, have you been to the movies lately? You're not. I mean, if you're writing a script for Transformers 12, maybe, right? Fast and Furious 30. They don't put out good movies anymore. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't bother.
I know, like he just like I just saw that they're going to be releasing The Matrix 4.
Yeah. Hollywood's more business than art, right? If it made money, okay, we'll do it again. Makes more money. That's okay. It's a business, but I do have a couple of friends.
After a certain point, like how many times can you tell the same story, right? Like,
well, now it depends of how much variations there are. Like if they don't vary it enough, it's no good. Matrix, right? But James Bond franchise is pretty well, and there's been like 20 something of those. So same thing, villain, hero. Anyway, it's interesting stuff. The script thing is very fascinating to me. I got friends from my past and my college years are in Hollywood, and it's all about storytelling at the script level. People love crafting stories and sharing it, but at the production level, it's all about the dollar. Will this thing make money or not? It's tough. Although with streaming now, there's more opportunities for creatives to get their stories, made into visual mediums. But I don't know. What's been the craziest? You don't have to mention names if you don't want to. Unless it's already out there. But what's the craziest story or book you've ever worked on?
So the craziest book would be Sherry Lewis. My Skeletons Have Names. And she tells her incredible story of growing up in an abusive home. She marries 3 narcissistic men who abuse her. She's then with a 4th boyfriend who almost kills her several times. She's got 3 different kids from 3 different fathers. She was addicted to alcohol and drugs. Her kids were involved in a terrorist attack. And so this is her story of how she not only survived all these things, but has learned to thrive and is now helping others learn to deal with the situations in their past. And every time I've talked to her, I'm like, Sherry, I swear you've got more lives than a cat, and God's got a plan for your life. So that's probably one of the really crazy ones.
That's amazing. I was working on this one book that the author, I think, is abandoning it, but it's about unconditional love. And she had connected with some pretty powerful people out there. And one of them was Scarlett Lewis. Scarlett is one of the moms from Sandy Hook. And I had a chance to interview her for about a half an hour. And I'm going through her story, her journey. She's a good storyteller, talking about her son and whatnot. And it was like, when the call's over, whoa, I was so draining, so emotionally powerful. I haven't, it was, crazy stuff out there. What about, you can't mention names on this question, so be careful, but do you have anybody come to you with like a really, that had shouldn't be an author?
Not really.
Yeah.
Because, I tend to attract very high quality people.
Yeah, right.
But I did have one gentleman who was a lawyer who wanted his sort of memoir book written.
Yeah.
And he was into a lot of things ethically and morally I could not support.
Mm-hmm.
And, like this guy's a top level lawyer, so you got to be really careful what you say. So I had to, find a way to let him know that I was not interested in writing his book.
Send him my way. It's okay. We're good.
No, this guy, I missed emailing by a couple of hours, and he sent me one of these emails, guilt tripping me and demanding, and I thought,
oh no, it's not gonna get better with age. Yeah, we used to do some books for physicians, and we don't do books for physicians anymore. It's just not a good fit. But I've had a couple of felons create books with us. One of them was a gentleman, Joe Gagliano. He has the world record for the largest point shading scandal in sports history. He did 2 terms in the federal pen. Another one I can't talk about because he's back under investigation again, but he is actually innocent. It was a government collusion at the federal level. It's horrible. I've interviewed 3 people on that topic, and none of them have been able to publish because you can't fight City Hall, and you certainly can't fight the feds. It's not a good idea. So, yeah, we tend to stay with the business leadership, nonfiction stuff. Do you have anybody ever come to you with want to do a fiction story where you ghostwrite fiction for them, or you focus just on nonfiction?
Yeah, but my immediate answer is that's not something I do, right? So we don't even really get into the conversation because I don't do those kind of books.
Yeah.
Though I have thought about learning how, because I want to do my own family history, sort of my version of Roots. Because I've been studying the my genealogy and that, and learning the different stories and things. So at some point, like when I have time, I might, do it. But right now I'm researching the family history and
do a creative nonfiction. You can always embellish it, make people look better than they are. So I don't know. All right, so let me get some tidbits and takeaways from you, Kim. Talking to someone who's just thinking about doing a book, they think they can write, but they probably prefer a ghostwriter, but they're nervous about it. What advice would you give them?
So I think, if you're going to write a book, I think you have to, a nonfiction book, right? So something that you're going to use, build your business with. I think if you can answer these 3 kind of questions, I think it's going to put you in a good place for your book, whether you write it or you work with a ghostwriter. So first of all is you want to know who you're writing the book to. It needs to be targeted. If you want your book to be effective, it has to be targeted. So who are you writing this book to? When you picture someone reading your book, what do they look like? What's their life like? What do they do, right? Think about all of those things. And then if you, the next thing is, what message do you want to send to them? What message do you really want to give to them that's going to be strong and powerful and change their life? And then third, what stories from your life can you tell that's going to help the person relate and then take that to the next level? So that's what I would suggest, is just really get a good grip on who you want to write to and the messages that you want and the stories of yourself that you want to share.
Yeah, brilliant. Good stuff. If in your opinion, if somebody wanted to write their book themselves, what kind of advice would you give somebody who can write? They could write okay, but maybe not. Maybe they blog or written a few articles. They want to tackle a book. What kind of advice would you give a person like that?
So first of all, find a course to take, right? Because writing blog posts, writing a book's a whole big different beast. So, find a good coach or course or coach to work with you. Find a good editor, right? And listen to that editor. Sometimes we get so emotionally attached to what we write, but find that editor that's not only going to do your grammar, but is also going to help you develop the book. So this editor will look at it and say, okay, this section's way too long. It's too repetitive. Let's scale this back. It's in the wrong order. Let's add a story here. So there's editors that I call a developmental editor, that will help guide you in getting the book into a good place. And then third of all, don't stay emotionally attached to that book, because it's more about making sure that the reader is going to benefit from the book than making sure that you write all the things that you want.
Beautiful. What good advice. I love that stuff. You guys, Kim Thompson Pinder, fellow publisher. Good. What do you call? Oh, you're extraordinary word ninja and chief visionary officer. I'm just Doug Crow, but I like your title better. Extraordinary word ninja and chief visionary officer. Go to the authortoauthority.com/podcast. Listen to her podcast. And anything else you want to, this is shameless plug time. Go ahead and give us what you want.
My book, Author to Authority, keeping with the brand, right, is coming out in October. So if you've enjoyed what I've been talking about today, there's a lot more of that in the book. And you can get the first 2 chapters for free. So you go to authortoauthority.com/get-the-book. All
right. Go to Author to Authority and find that link. I'm not going to repeat that one. Good job, Chim. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. You're a true cohort in this business, and keep up the good fight. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me on, Doug. I really appreciate it. And I enjoyed the conversation.
Me too. Thanks so much. All right. That wraps up today, folks. Hope you enjoy the show. Come on every day here for another episode of the Author Brand Show. You're going to want to take notes. Go ahead and click below and subscribe. There's some goodies there for people to subscribe on our website, or go to Spotify, iTunes, wherever you want to go. YouTube's also there. Thanks so much and have a great day.